Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Buenos dias, muchacha.
Buenos dias, chica. Hello.
I just got to see you, and this is kind of fun that we're still talking. For those of you that don't know, we just spent, was it 12 days?
Mm-hmm.
In the rainforest of Costa Rica.
Sharing
together.
a bedroom.
We did.
So the fact that we are still friends, that we're still speaking.
It's a testament to our strength and grace.
It's huge, Ali.
Resilience. Grit.
Alison, it is huge.
Oh, shoot. So it's like, oh, what are we going to talk about today? Because we've been talking for a long time now.
We have been talking for a long time. Well, you had the idea to speak about the questions that we were posed by our good friend Anna at the beginning of that retreat. And the sort of overarching theme, I would say, is intention, setting an intention and exploring said intention.
The aforementioned.
The aforementioned intention.
Yes. I don't know if you're like me, but I remember when I first got into like the self-help development growth world, I felt like all I did was listen to people talk about what's your intention? What's such your and I was like, this is obnoxious. And I'm now like 8 years in. Yeah. And I think I get it now. But it's taken me 8 years to be like, oh, that's why we set an intention.
What do you get that you didn't get?
In the beginning, I was like, yeah, that's nice. Like every yoga practice has an intention. And I thought, oh, that was nice. But as soon as I would like, ooh, I'll think about this, like it would flutter away and I wouldn't remember it throughout my yoga practice. I would set the intention and then I'd come to the end of class and I'd grab my shoes and I'd leave, right? So it didn't seem that powerful or useful for me. However, I think I now understand that that's because I didn't really have a solid relationship to setting an intention. So part of setting the intention is probably exploring your relationship to doing it and why would you bother? So I think I've now gotten to a place where I set an intention so that I can get what I want. I mean, it's that simple. So when I go on a retreat for 12 days in the rainforest, and I know we're going to be like digging into things that are confronting and tough to be with, and all of that, it's hard work. It's for me, it's incredibly emotional work. If I set an intention, it kind of like helps me tether back to like, what am I doing all this for? Why am I, uncovering these things that I don't want to look at? Why am I asking people about the impact that I have on them? Because that is hard to hear. Oh, right. Because I set these intentions early on, and these are things that I really want.
I know when Anna first put these questions forward, and we'll write Anna's name in the little notes at the bottom. I'm hesitating to pronounce Anna's surname. Anna, I'm just going to say it.
Huwiler?
Huwiler.
She is Swiss. So there's a lot of letters, and it's not pronounced the way it looks. Anna Huwiler. I like it. I'll spell it in the notes right here.
Yeah, just put a pile of vowels in there. Put loads of U's and I's and E's and some more U's. Yeah, when Anna first, laid out the questions, and she was like, oh, I might do it in a survey. And I was like, no, let's all write them down, because I will want to look back at them during the retreat.
Yeah.
And I'm just connecting that to you saying, oh, when I first started yoga, I would set an intention, and an hour later, I hadn't thought about that intention once.
Yeah.
Left the mat, didn't even remember the intention.
Yeah.
And sort of to that point, it seemed important to me that I would write these questions down in my notebook. And then, as I said to Anna, I will have them to look back at during the retreat. And lo and behold, I didn't look at them again the entire 12. We did it on day one,
One
and
day.
I didn't look back at them at all.
Yep.
Didn't look at them until you accidentally fell upon your own answers.
At the airport on the way home.
Mm,
Same thing. I did not go back and look at them at all.
yeah. So I'm then questioning, is it important
Uh-huh.
to remember one's intention? I don't know the answer to that. It seems to me that on this occasion, it wasn't important that I had it consciously at the fore of my mind,
Um, you
or that
did
I
have
checked back
it,
in.
like you pulled these intentions into your conscious mind at the beginning, yes?
Mm,
So you wrote the first question and you wrote a pile of things, as you say.
mm,
So at some point during the retreat, the very first day, you did have it in the front of your mind.
yeah.
And then it went somewhere. And then on your flight home, when I texted you, you were like, oh gosh, I looked at mine too. You saw it. And what did you notice? Like, did you get the things that did you get what you wanted?
Yeah.
So when I looked back, I also was surprised to see that I'd gotten everything that I wanted. So I don't know where those intentions go. Like they're very, very much in the front of my mind. Then I go through 12 days and then they go somewhere. And then when I go back and look, it's like, is it just like if I really think about it, I can hear my heart beating. But then that thought passes by. My heart doesn't stop beating. It continues to do the thing. So
Mm,
I don't know if intentions work the same way, where like you bring them to the front of your mind and then they disappear into the subconscious somewhere, but they're still there. Like
mm,
they don't actually disappear. They just move off. They
mm,
move off the screen, but they're still operating in the background.
mm. So that suggests that it isn't important to remember them.
Correct.
Yeah. That you
Just
can,
to bring them to the front and then let them
yeah,
do what they do.
yeah. There was tremendous value in checking back in with them, which we both said had sort of happened accidentally.
Yeah.
Um, and well, it happened accidentally, I understood, for you.
Yeah.
And I only checked back because you had checked back and seen that you had everything that you had intended to create, you had created.
Yep.
Everything that you hoped would happen um, happened.
Yeah.
And so that's why I checked back in. But it does seem that potentially you can set the intention and just let go of it. You don't need to keep it fore of mind on a post-it note at the end of your nose so that you look at it every day.
Right.
Having said that, we both took action
Yeah.
in alignment with our intention.
Yep.
And that was a lot of that action was conscious, not all
Yes.
of it, but
Yes.
some of it was deliberate, on purpose, conscious action.
So I think where the next step now, so that we're not just talking about this ethereal concept, is to look at the questions, because I think the questions set us up so that we would get what we wanted without having to like focus on it the whole time,
Mm,
perhaps.
mm.
How
And
does
we
that
can
sound?
type the questions in the
Below, please
comments
find the
below.
questions. If you're
Yeah.
watching this on YouTube,
Mm,
you can see the questions below.
mm.
All right. Should we read the questions?
Yeah. And can I
Should we
just say
toggle
these?
back and forth?
Yeah, we can do. Um, I don't have all the questions. I realized when you showed me some of them last
Damn
night.
it, Mia.
Somehow I only got to question 5, and I don't know what happened then to me.
I have 7 questions.
Yeah, I think maybe I wrote the answers, but not the
Yeah.
questions. But what I want to say is these were about the retreat.
Yeah.
I did them again last night about the next 4 months. So I
Oh,
adapted them.
oh,
So I want
cool.
to put that in, that they are adaptable. You can change them to
Yeah.
fit, a retreat, your weekend, your year ahead,
Yeah.
whatever you like. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
You want to start
So,
with number 1?
yeah, great. So the first question was, what breakthrough would you love to get, even if in this moment you don't think it's possible?
Yeah.
And the breakthrough in this context is, let's see if I can describe breakthrough. To me, it feels like breaking through an old habit, barrier, way of being into something new.
Yep. That you currently don't have access to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have an add-on question for number 1 that says, what would life be like then?
Oh, was that in the retreat?
I don't know.
I'm adding
I
that
mean, you're
in.
asking me to remember now like 15 days ago, which is impossible.
Come on now.
Completely impossible.
What would life be like then? Yeah. Okay. Question 2.
Number 2, what's
Mm,
predictable? What's likely?
mm,
So I think this question is important because it helped me to see all the ways that if I want 6-pack abs, I'm going to eat the potato chips. Like I'm going to get sad or bored or hungry or not eat a meal. I'll be at the Quick Trip, which is the gas station where I live, and they have dill pickle chips, and I buy them and then I eat
mm,
them. So that's
mm,
predictable.
mm,
And I think this is helpful because it for at least a minute while I'm answering that question, I'm right here in my executive functioning part of my brain. These are
mm,
all the ways that I'm going to throw stuff will get in my way.
mm. Yeah, it's a really good question. Number 3, what version of you would you like to bring into this space? I
Hmm.
really like that question. And I answered it yesterday in relating to the next 4 months. What version of myself would I like to bring forward in the next
We
4 months?
I love that. Will you give an example to people that don't speak like that? Like when you say the version of me? Well, it sounds culty, right? Where people are like, huh? So when you say what version of you, can you give an example?
Well, for the retreat, I said the free, playful, natural creature that I am.
Yeah.
Um, I said some kind of like arty farty stuff like learning to open my wings and to allow the winds of change to lift me up.
What a poet. What a
Hmm.
distinguished fellow.
Ew. Um, if I look at what I wrote for what version of myself would I like to bring into the space or bring forward in the next 4 months, I said the version who plays comfortably at the front of the room
Mm.
when facilitating. Um, Again, the me who is playful, the me who is dedicated, and committed to excellence. And I've written, 2 pages of
Wow.
stuff
Yeah.
about the me that I want to bring forward in the next 4 months. When I was at the retreat, it was shorter because we
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
going through an
Yes.
activity as a group, and it was pretty poetic.
Yeah.
However, to me, it was really about liberation and freedom.
Mm. It's funny. I didn't have that written. The question 3 that I wrote, it's so funny. You and I were at the same retreat, right? I have, how would I like things to go differently?
Oh,
Isn't it funny? So they're both legit and they
yeah,
both get to the same thing, but it's funny that even you and I
yeah,
didn't have it the same way.
yeah. And I'm looking here. I said, I have no idea how interesting this is for Tracy, but never mind. I said, allowing the winds of change to lift me up. I wrote that twice for some reason. And then I
Mm.
said, me working with the energy of the wind to soar and fly. And then I've written the word altitude. And then I've
Yeah.
written from there, my bird's eye view. I see the natural connectedness that I am. And although that's very poetic, I knew what it meant.
Yeah.
And um, and that I achieved that.
Beautiful.
Curious. Mm.
Yeah. This
So
is all about,
question,
oh,
go.
sorry. Just
Yeah.
that if you want to write it in a poetic way, as long as I think it's a beautiful opportunity to get a little bit more creative about how we see things. I tend to be very like, I would like to take 10 steps to the right. I would like to sit
Mm.
in a chair, right? And yours
Mm.
is like I would like to soar. And yeah,
Yeah. I noticed the difference because you shared your notes with me and I noticed that it was more of a list and I was like,
I'm,
oh, Ali's really concise. Some of the words were even abbreviated, like
yeah,
diff instead of different. And I was like,
yes,
oh,
that's,
that's,
yeah,
and
I'm
I've
all
written
bullets.
flowery
Yeah.
lawn, flowery, flowery. Yeah. Great. So question 4.
Are you ready?
I am ready, super ready.
What is the best and worst thing that could happen? That was a hard question for me to answer
Mm.
in the
So
moment.
I had that slightly longer. I had the best and worst thing that could happen to me this week.
Uh-huh.
So
Got it.
i.e. in that retreat. And when I did it last night, it was
In the next 4
best and
months.
worst things that could happen to me
Yeah.
in the next 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
yeah, and in response to that one, I said, I allow my sort of practiced default, can't even read that word. Oh, ley lines well traveled
Mm,
in my brain to rule. So I allow those well traveled paths
yes.
in my brain to simply function. They
Yeah.
are the fastest path from A to B.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're heavily myelinated to create super speed. I don't need to consciously think.
Yep.
I just
Just
react from
boom.
default. Yeah.
Write it all down.
So that to me was one of the worst things that could happen, because I would then not be consciously actively creating something different outside of what was predictable for myself. I
Yeah.
would just be being super predictable in
Yeah.
my default mode, pick me up and pop me down in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I'd just be in a different setting. I wouldn't be practicing anything new or different.
Yep. And this question really gets to that
Mm,
because our brains were really good at figuring out all of the terrible things that are going to happen. What
mm,
we're not really good at, that's why I like this question, is like, and what's the most amazing things that could happen? What are the best
mm,
things that could happen?
mm,
Why, again, would I give up those dill pickle chips and their delicious crunch
mm,
in service of what? What's the best thing
mm.
that could happen? I would
Yeah, and
have
I
to say
just
that,
want to
yes.
make that really real in terms of the worst. It was, I don't raise my hand, I
Yep.
don't speak up, I freeze. I'm sort of, like a paralyzed, frozen relic.
Yeah.
I'm just operating from this skeletal,
Yeah.
um, sort of like a shell,
Yeah.
rather than being super present. Um, yeah, good question. Right, question 5. The only word I have written, and I suspect there is more, is expectations.
Okay.
Do you have a fuller question for
I
that?
do.
Thanks.
Like a child might, it's
Oh,
a
okay.
prompt. Like a child might, comma, my expectations slash desires are dot dot dot. And that's where my bullet list comes in.
Okay, so you put down all the desires, or did you have expectations and desires as distinct from one another?
Nope. They're this the way I think they're the same.
Okay. I interpreted that differently when I was at
Okay.
the retreat.
Yep.
So I had, for expect,
Hmm.
brace yourself.
I'm ready.
But I have on the second page got I desire, but on this side, so I must have understood it at the time. I just didn't write down the full question. But I've got things like I expect to disappoint myself and others.
Aha.
I expect myself, I can't read that. I expect my obedient girl
Mm,
to resurface to protect herself, from the grown up, from what I, as a
yeah.
conscious grown up, and am working to achieve. I expect myself to fail. I expect myself to fall short. I expect myself to get it wrong. And then on the desire side,
Hmm.
I desire to free myself from the shroud. I desire to release myself from the fiction of the walls that don't really exist. Um, I
Yeah.
desire to practice being seen here by these beautiful souls.
Mm.
Um, and I desire that I experience the space as safe, that it feels safe for me. I desire to love the space.
It's one way to do it.
Your face.
I love that we did it so differently
Yeah,
because
bonkers.
mine was the way my relationship to expectations I learned in Al-Anon from my lovely friend Joyce, who was like 1,000 years old. And she said, an expectation is simply a preconceived resentment. So for
Okay.
me, for me, an expectation is a desire. An expectation is a preconceived resentment. So when we're talking in the world of like living with an addict or an alcoholic, if I expect my husband, who was at that time actively drinking,
Yeah.
if I expected him to stop, if I expected him to give up alcohol, if I expected him to not relapse, I was going to be disappointed and resentful.
Mm, mm,
My desire was that he would, but
mm,
I, you know, I can have lots of desires that go unmet, right?
mm.
So for me, my expectations come from my deepest desires.
Yeah.
So my desires were really about like, what is it that I want in this space? What do I really desire, like from my
Mm,
heart, from my
mm.
soul? So that's why mine is a bullet list.
Yeah. So you didn't, I noticed on yours, you didn't put down the
I
the
didn't go to the place
expectations.
where it's like, I expect I'm going to chicken out. I expect I'm going to beat
Yeah.
myself up for doing it wrong.
Mm,
No, because my expectation and come from my desire. So I just went straight to desire. Again, there's no
mm,
right or wrong way to do this.
mm, mm. Yeah. I did this and then flipped it to,
Yeah,
yeah, what I wanted.
it's all possible.
Mm. And then the next question, and I think there were 7, but
Uh,
I just
yes,
have,
this is number 6 now.
yeah,
For those
I
of you
I don't
counting.
have number 6.
Okay.
Um, I don't have number 6 or number 7. I just have the word request written down and then some stuff written underneath. But I think I've I've missed actually
Okay, so
writing the
number
question.
6 I have is
Mhm.
which expectations or desires are out of my control?
Mm.
So for the rest, how might you take action or make a request? So if there's any expectations or desires that I have no agency, like
Mm.
I'm kind of like if I wanted to not rain in the rainforest, for example, if that was like a desire,
Mhm.
that's not something I can do anything about.
Mhm.
Now, if I want to have like a deeper relationship with you and Angela, which is in my control, then I list that, and then I put down like what are some actions that I can take, or what are some requests that I can make of you.
Mm. Yeah, I can see from my answers that I was following those questions, but I didn't write them
You didn't
down.
write it down. It's okay.
No.
No
So
worries.
the majority of my expectations were about myself, of myself,
Uh-huh. Yep.
rather
Yeah.
than about others or of others.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think it's an important question because again, it puts us in a place where we can see how like I really want, let's say, the leaders
mm,
to do better, let's say.
mm,
Well, okay, neat. But that puts me outside of having any impact at all.
mm,
And so this is like I think this question really invites me back in to like, well, okay, I can want things for others and point fingers,
mm,
but at some point, what do I get to have agency over? Where do I get to play? And what do I own? What can I own?
mm.
Which is way more
Reminds
empowering.
me of the Serenity poem.
Yes, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the
Yeah,
courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
yeah.
It's a great prayer.
Mm,
Yeah, when things are out of control, it's really helpful.
mm. Yeah, and here it really helps to distinguish, okay, I could spend a lot of energy over here
Yeah,
hoping that XYZ happens, but it's completely out of my control. Or I can focus my energy where I have agency and
yeah,
power. So it's
yeah.
a really nice small exercise, a little bit of writing in your journal, um, to just focus back in on where you can actually make change.
So if we were to do this with an alcoholic, for example,
Mm,
I can notice that I can't have control over my husband's drinking. I can't control that. I have no control. But what I can control is I refuse to be around it.
mm,
That's something I have a car, right?
mm,
I can leave. I have a credit
mm,
card. I can stay in a hotel. Those are
mm.
things that I can control and being able to like un, mm,
Unhook.
yeah, thank you, decouple, unhook, right?
Mm, mm,
From that thing. It's really empowering and puts me back in a position of like, I'm not just, life isn't just happening to me.
mm. Yeah, it's actively, I really like the agency in
Yeah,
that question. I really like the invitation to step into your agency, into
yeah,
one's agency,
yeah,
um, and distinguish as clearly as one can.
yeah,
Because that road, down that road lies madness.
yes,
To be sort of like banging on the door of something that we have no control over. We spend a lot of time there and a lot of energy there.
yeah,
Um, you know, hand against the forehead or head against the wall, just treading water.
yeah,
I'm so tired. I've done so much. I'm
yep,
trying really hard, you know, in a dead end, because
yes,
that isn't the place where we can exert power. Here, with the things that I've distinguished that I can
yeah.
change, is the place to look.
This reminds me, I was doing some leadership development yesterday at a university,
Mm,
and we had somebody speaking, and she said, um, a leader doesn't motivate and inspire. A leader creates the conditions for you to be motivated and inspired. And I was like, oh, that's a good one.
mm. Yeah, I'm just writing that down. It
Oh, I thought I lost
reminds,
you. I thought you were like,
no, no,
okay,
no.
stop recording.
No. Um, it reminds me in the world of parenting
Hmm.
about the parent creating an enabling environment.
Enabling in a, I think of enabling as not a good idea.
That word has been co-opted as
It
as
sure has.
yeah, yeah. But the parent creating an environment, if you want to take the word enabling out, but that
Hmm.
word is used in a positive sense,
Yeah, yeah,
um, that enables
yeah,
the child, young person, offspring to grow, learn, develop, explore their own
yeah,
agency,
yes, and
um,
learn.
and learn, and to not get in the way of their innate motivation.
Yeah,
So
nice.
it feels very similar. Mm,
Hmm.
mm.
All right, you ready for the last question? The
Sure,
last and final
go,
question, number 7.
go.
It's just what am I holding on to? What am I holding on to about myself, about others at this retreat, about the leaders of this program? And the idea is like, what am I energetically holding on to? Like, for example, they were doing it wrong. They filled the program with too many people. Um, they hadn't owned all of the clearings that they had created. Like I actually had a lot. It's fun when I get to point finger at people, but that these are things that I was holding on to as I was coming into that retreat, and then
Mm,
being able to voice those, or at least write them down and get clear. Once again, Allison, I'm pretty harsh in my judgments.
mm,
And noticing like, okay, it's there. I am holding on to these things, like to pretend that I'm more evolved or that I don't judge people harshly. Like, okay, cool. But between me and my notebook,
yeah.
I actually am pretty harsh in my judgment of people. And the act of writing it all out had me really look at that and go, wow, I still do that thing. I'm softer now and gentler and have more grace now than I used to,
Mm.
but I still do it.
I'm wondering about the positioning of that question at the end
Yeah.
of that line of questions. Um, and I think what's coming to me is that it's there to, like you just said, oh, wow, there's still stuff here. So even though I've gone through the exercise,
Hmm.
focus my attention on my desires, focus my attention on where I have agency and power to
Yeah.
create those desires. Um, what am I holding on to allows me to notice that there are still things in my
Yes.
way. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And the thing that's nice about writing this out is then I was looking at it and I was like, I can let a lot of this stuff go. But um, if I don't put it into, again, the front part of my brain and in my
yeah, yeah, conscious.
consciousness,
Mm,
I'm kind of at the, like, it'll just keep happening in the background
mm,
and it's just running and I'm
mm,
not really doing anything about it. Whereas
mm,
this had me really focus on, I'm actually holding a lot on all of you.
mm,
And that's, it was actually an empowering thing to do because then I looked at it and I was like, cool.
mm.
And go ahead.
No, I was just thinking I'm going to do the exercise again today. I did it last night, but I'm going to do it again today because my energy is very low. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the next 4 months and feeling um well, sad.
Yeah.
And, as I experiment with, living alone for a period of time, so I can see that I am holding not necessarily something, although there might be that I'm holding things on other people, but I can see that I'm holding stories in my head.
About you.
Yeah.
You're holding a lot on yourself.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's,
About my capacity to deal with or not deal with
yeah.
um, this adventure, opportunity,
Yeah.
curse that
You can relate to it however you want.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to make a
Yeah.
cup of tea and do it
It
again.
puts you at a place where you get to choose now.
Mm,
Like once you've laid it all out and you're like, I'm whatever your version is of like
mm,
what it's like to be at this transition point,
mm.
and then all the things you believe about yourself, what you're holding on yourself.
And I'd like to point out to Tracy that it is often, for me at least, although I do not believe I'm unique in this,
Mm,
um, a question, it will be a question or a case of choosing back into that again and again, over and over.
yeah.
As I'm building that new pathway in my mind, um, there will be a requirement for me to consciously choose back in
Yep.
because the well myelinated
Yep.
default pathway is faster and
Yeah.
will win over every time
Yes.
without me consciously building a new pathway.
Yeah.
So it
The
will be a case of not just choosing once, but choosing many, many, many
repeatedly
times. Yeah, yeah,
that when you go back into the rut, the well-worn
hmm
pathway, you're like,
yeah,
ah,
yeah.
you gotta
I'm back in.
get
Yeah,
yourself off to the new one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. With, to use your words, I think you said these earlier, with as much grace and love
Yeah.
and self-compassion
Yeah.
as, I or one can muster. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It actually goes faster that way
Mhm.
when we can be
Faster.
really building that new pathway.
Mm,
That when we slip back into our old way,
mm,
being really gentle and kind to ourselves, like, oops,
mm,
instead of being like,
mm,
God, I'm such an idiot. I like digging
mm,
it
mm,
and beating ourselves. It's a lot more energy and it takes longer instead of just being like,
mm,
oops, go back
mm.
and keep plowing that new path.
Yeah, and again, I'm thinking as I would, um, because of my background, but thinking about how I would redirect a
Yes.
child or a young person,
Yes.
or anyone actually who wasn't me, but certainly someone who was younger. And as this pathway is newer, it is therefore younger.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would redirect that person lovingly. I wouldn't
Beat
whack them
them.
on the back of their head and
Yeah.
nudge the, shove them over to the right. I would gently encourage them over to the
Yes.
right. Um, so yes, um, I can see some opportunity for myself here to
Mm.
practice lovingly bringing myself back
Yep.
to the path that I have consciously chosen,
Yeah.
knowing that I will fall off it regularly and bring myself back.
The other thing I notice when I can do that for myself is how much I can do that then for others.
Mm,
Because I judge myself really harshly, which is why I judge others harshly. And I'm
mm,
now noticing how less harshly I judge others
yeah,
because I am less harsh on myself.
yeah,
So it does translate.
yeah, yeah. As always, what's the expression? Charity begins at home or something.
Oh, I
There's
don't
some
know.
expression like that. Yeah,
Sounds very British.
charity begins at home. So it's practice
hmm
here.
hmm And that's what's beautiful about these questions is that these are all about you. They're for
Mm,
you. They're
mm,
by you.
mm, mm.
They're yours. Nobody ever had to like nobody saw any of this.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, you graciously shared yours with mine, and I have now shared some of
And you've
mine
now
on this
posted them on
podcast.
Facebook.
Yeah, but yeah, that is the beauty of this is that, and also, I did this 12 days ago.
Yeah.
I did it last night. I'm going to sit with a cup of tea now and do it again. So it's not a one and done.
No.
It's a something that, you can take 20 minutes and dip back into.
Yeah.
And it's private,
Yeah.
as private as you want it to be.
So I think what I've learned from going through these questions again and talking about them with you is that the power isn't in having them written down so that I can go back and read them. The power is in going through the questions that
Mm,
stuff happens inside the mind that then
mm,
click, click, click starts to put things together
mm,
such that when I did go back 13 days later,
mm.
I was like, I literally got everything on my bullet list. I had like, I don't know, 15 things written down.
Yeah.
They were all like boom, 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 boom. So I didn't
Mm,
have to keep them in the front of my mind because I'd worked my way out. And somehow
mm,
that went in to the background and operated in the background such
mm.
that at the end of the retreat, I was like, I got all the stuff I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I've noticed that many times
Yeah.
with, you know, speaking a desire out into the world or putting a picture to it,
Yeah.
cutting a picture out and sticking it on the fridge door, or, um, all the many ways that we can sort of speak or create our desire as more real. We take the next step beyond a thought.
Yes.
Um, in this case, it was writing. So
Yeah.
creating written words around those thoughts and making them concrete.
And I have heard from neuroscientists in the world that our subconscious or unconscious part of our brain doesn't know what we're thinking until we either say it out loud or write it down. And so it
Mm-hmm.
may be that just the act of writing it down or
Mm-hmm.
speaking it aloud lets the unconscious part of our brain start working on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Seems a little mystical, and yet,
Mm. Well, yeah. I mean, the mind responds to instruction.
yeah.
So we
Yeah.
are giving it instructions
Hmm.
by mapping these pieces out.
So how do I get the instruction to stop eating all the dill pickle chips?
I have no idea.
That's a different
That's a
podcast.
different one. Yeah. That's the
I
dill
hear you.
pickle podcast. I love dill.
Mm,
So that's your takeaway, I'm assuming.
it is. What is
Mm.
your takeaway?
My takeaway is that actually there are many ways to do this. Mine
Hmm.
was my language was quite flowery and poetic.
Just like you.
Um, yours was more concise, more specific,
Hmm.
and yet we both got the things that we intended to get.
Yeah.
We both created the things that we wanted to create. So for me, that's really exciting, because it's
Mm,
kind of like you can't get it wrong.
yes.
You just do it the way you do it. You answer these questions the way you answer them.
Mm,
That feels really liberating.
mm,
Mm, I love that.
yay us.
Cool.
All right.
Short one.
Landing the plane. Um, is there anything else that you need to say to feel complete about our podcast today, Mia?
No, I enjoyed the brevity of it. Thank you.
Me as well. All right.
Mm.
Ciao, lady.
Bye. Bye, Tracy. Bye, Sharafat.